We start now, please. So we continue with the labor market in an imperfect competition.
Yeah.
So, for the labor market, like I said earlier, we still continue with labor market in an imperfect competition. But there are two things in the labor market that is imperfect. We have trade union and government intervention. Government intervention. Those are the two reasons why there is imperfection in the labor market. So we talked about the trade union yesterday, which simply means the trade union is a powerful trade union will be able to negotiate high wage for their members, and that increases their wages above the minimum wage rate. That is for the trade union, and that brings about imperfection in the labor market because the cost of production for firms will increase, and probably they might not be able to pay such amounts. That is the labor market. It changes the situation of things. But today we want to talk about government intervention. And for government to intervene, government will use minimum wage. That is government. For the trade union, they use collective bargaining. Collective bargaining. That is trade union. But for government will come up with minimum wage policy. So for minimum wage, that's the least amount of money you pay. You are allowed statutory amount you are allowed to pay to the lowest ranked officer in your country. That is minimum wage. So with government intervention, minimum wage may be set above the minimum wages. This is likely to increase the supply of labor to some extent, as it allows low income earners to earn more, increase their productivity and boost aggregate demand within the economy. Government will set minimum wage to ensure that poverty is a bit reduced, to ensure that low income earners are able to get more than what they used to get. That's the objective of government, setting minimum wage. However, it will lead to inflationary pressure, cost push inflation.
Yes, cost push.
Yeah, if you think about cost push inflation, cost push inflation.
The rising price due to the rising.
Yeah, if firms have to pay above the minimum wage rate, it will bring about cost push inflation. That's the first thing. There's also inflationary pressure because aggregate demand is expected to rise. Aggregate demand is expected to rise, and that will bring about demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation.
So this want to.
Yeah, demand is increasing in the economy, so that will bring about hiking price. That is the point there. So also, young workers might not get the opportunity to work, and unskilled workers might not be opportunity to work, because when firms are paying above the minimum wage rate, it simply means they want to employ highly skilled workers based on the fact that with the minimum wage rate increasing, with the minimum wage rate increasing above the minimum wage rate, the supply of labor is expected to increase. So if the supply of labor is increasing, it gives firms the opportunity to choose highly skilled workers, experienced workers, ahead of inexperienced workers and low skilled workers. Do you understand the point I'm making there? Great. So this is the graphical representation. Equilibrium wage rate is set above, minimum wage rate is set above the minimum wage rate. It will increase the supply of labor from SL to SL1. It will increase it. Right? It will increase the supply of labor, but it reduces the demand for labor. Do you get it? So numbers of workers that firms will be willing to employ will reduce, especially unskilled, inexperienced, and uneducated workforce. Do you get the point here? Any questions about that?
No, it's pretty.
So, okay. In summary, minimum wage rate will not be enough for workers to survive upon, as it doesn't put into consideration the cost of living in different areas. So, so if government set minimum wage rate, that is the statutory amount you can pay. But some areas, the cost of living in some areas are higher, much higher than other areas. So which simply means it might not have impact on those, because it doesn't put into account the cost of living. So as a result of that, firms might come up with living wage rate. It is voluntary. It is not compulsory. So that means also finding a way to solve. Minimum wage rate is what government can do, but the living wage rate is determined by the firms. But government will introduce it, and it's left for firms to implement it or not. So this will be solved through living wage rates. living wage rate, the living wage rate is a higher voluntary wage rate paid to employees to enable them to afford the basic needs: clothing, shelter, food.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. This improves their living standard because minimum wage rate might not be able to do that. Do you get it here? So with living wage rate, it is evident that with living wage rate, employees become more motivated, they become more productive, there's less absenteeism, and the staff retention. Yes.
Do they use the CPI to calculate the living wage rate?
What?
Do they use the CPI to calculate the living wage rate?
Consumer price index.
Yeah.
Living wage rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's based on indexation, so they use it. Without, how do we know how expensive the cost of living is in some areas? We need to know based on the CPI.
Yeah, right. It's not the whole average. This is locality.
Yes. That is how they're going to be able to base the living wage rate.
Alright.
They just want to ensure that the basic food, the basic needs of a food basket is affordable. That is the point about living wage rate. So with living wage rate, standard of living will reduce, staff absenteeism, numbers of workers that are absent at work will reduce. And if the numbers of workers that are absent at work are reducing, it simply means productivity will increase.
It's true, yeah.
It increases productivity and it improves staff retention. With staff retention, firms don't need to spend a lot of money on recruitment.
It's true, yeah.
And that reduces their cost of production. And if their cost of production is reduced, it increases their profitability. Do you get it? So this is the effect of minimum wage rate and living wage rate in the labor market.
High retention means low labor turnout, right?
What?
High retention means low labor turnout.
Yeah, low labor turnover, yeah. Staff retention, yeah.
Okay.
It's the same as low labor turnover.